Iran's political arena is seeing one of its crucial moments. While the Interior Ministry is going to bell the end of the campaign period on June the 13th, presidential contenders make the utmost use of their time to attract people's votes. Most of the candidates are touring different cities across the country. They visit cities and towns and listen to villagers, traders, shopkeepers, students, even among subway passengers who explain their situations, so the candidates present their solutions and promise to do their best to tackle the country's major problems. At last, rumors turned out true and Aref pulled out of the race on June the 11th. Aref said on his website that Khatami had sent him a letter advising that it would not be wise for him to stay in the race for the election on Friday. He mentioned that it will withdraw in favor of people and reformism. A day before, Gholam Ali Haddad Adel, a principalist candidate, withdrew from the competition, but he didn't support any special candidate. Every day, many websites and organizations make the fluctuating results of their opinion polls public. These opinion polls have been a good barometer to measure how much the three debate shows on the national TV and radio stations changed people's ideas about the candidates. In this episode of Iran Today, we take a closer look at the latest stories on candidates, their campaigns, and also the measures taken by officials for the election day.
جناب آقای محسن رضایی جناب آقای دکتر غلام علی حداد جناب آقای دکتر علی اکبر بلایی جناب آقای محمد باقر قالیباف جناب آقای دکتر حسن روحانی جناب آقای دکتر سعید جلیلی جناب آقای دکتر محمد رضا عارف جناب آقای سید محمد عرف
Several coalitions had emerged among the presidential hopefuls before the registration day. On June the 10th, Haddad Adel declared that he leaves the race. He stated he withdrew as a member of the coalition of three. However, he did not endorse any members of the coalition.
Mr. Haddad Adel resigned and clearly announced his support of the principalists. To ensure certainty in the first stage, all the principalists can agree on a single candidate and probably win the elections, because the opinion polls show that the overall votes for them can ensure the win in the first round.
Now, 2 days before the election, one reformist candidate is still in the race, the chairman of the Expediency Council's Research Center, Hassan Rouhani. Reformist heavyweights finally convinced Aref to withdraw in favor of Rouhani. Based on the reports, a 7-member group of reformists was in charge of discussions and taking the final decision.
The number of votes for the two reformist candidates is unequal. Usually the candidate with fewer votes resigns in support of the other. Regardless of the difference of opinions, they share a common overall political orientation. They both admit the overall agreement and difference in details.
Now that the reformist groups agreed on a single candidate, everyone is waiting to see what the next move of their traditional rival, the principalists, is. Rumors have it that many are trying to convince the principalist candidates to pull out of the race in favor of Tehran's mayor, Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf.
So far, only one candidate has proclaimed himself as a reformist. The other one, whom the reformists support, isn't absolutely devoid of principalist ideas. He thinks beyond mere party lines, so Mr. Rouhani is not totally in opposition to the principalists so much.
Will any principalist resign to support another principalist? Even in such a scenario, there will be some disagreements. It all depends on the reformist's actions. If one reformist remains after a coalition, they will win more votes and the runoff will surely be between a reformist and a principalist.
In the last days of the legal period of campaigning, candidates try to visit different constituencies to deliver speeches to people and hear their problems. On the other hand, the principalist Saeed Jalili went to the Esfahan province in the center of the country. During a tour of rural areas in Esfahan, he talked to the people of Khomeini Shah.
I asked how much could we realize our potentials in the production sector in this city, Khomeini Shah. When can the production sector prosper? In agriculture and industry, production will not succeed unless you know the final product is needed by the national market or not.
Presidential elections are a good opportunity for the people in rural and suburban areas to stand and talk with the officials face to face. Mohsen Rezai, the secretary of Iran's Expediency Council, has had the most provincial visits among his rivals.
How should we tell the politicians not to intervene in arts, culture, and sports? Many of our artists and athletes are eager to manage their respective fields. I will prevent any intervention of politicians in arts and sports.
The mayor of Tehran, Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf, also had a tour of Tehran on June the 8th. He made speeches among the people of Varamin and Islam Shahr in the southern suburbs of Tehran.
I assure you that I will bring order to the economy in 2 years so that every family will find employment. All the families whose members are suffering from unemployment will be employed in 2 years. A spirit of work and endeavor should pervade the society.
On the other side, in the heart of the capital, thousands of Hassan Rouhani's Tehrani supporters went to the Shirodi sports complex to participate in Rouhani's campaign gatherings.
With unity and cohesion, with national reconciliation, we will make a national opportunity for all. We will create reconciliation with the world too. The main policy for government of wisdom and hope will be productive cooperation with the world.
On June the 9th, the independent contender Mohammad Gharazi, who blames both the reformist and principalist groups on Iran's high inflation rate, had a meeting with a member of Iran's Chamber of Commerce.
Governing any country or district like this will destroy both the governor and the governed. The economy will be destroyed. The definition of an administration is a unit accumulating the whole capabilities of the country. So the administration should direct the energies and the capabilities towards common goals.
On June the 10th, Ali Akbar Velayati also had a campaign speech in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, which has been central to the country's economic and political history over the last century.
The unions should supervise and monitor themselves. The administration should just monitor from its high administrative level. Intervention of the administration in the most detailed affairs and supporting a few public units will surely harm the markets.
In the past days, 3 4-hour debate shows were arranged by IRIB, Iran's national radio and television organization. The shows were aired live on Channel 1 and Radio Iran.
I think that we cannot call these shows debate shows. A debate show should have a single defined topic, a clear categorization, and the participants should challenge each other. Sitting and answering the questions isn't a debate. A debate is specific and detailed to let the candidates to represent their goals and plans, which were resulted from prior discussion with their advisors.
The candidates could manage to present their plans and policies in the debate shows. Their plans were based on their experience and knowledge. They could also challenge their rivals' plans. These were the positive points of the debate shows.
Millions of people carefully watched the debates to find their right choice. According to the statistics, an estimated 47 million people in Iran stayed in front of the screens and watched the second debate. Naturally, the last debate was the heated one and changed the result of many opinion polls. Analysts believe that these debates were highly decisive.
نسبت به شناختی که از کاندیداها پیدا کردیم فقط یه بدی که داشت وقتشون زمانش کم بود نمیتونستن بیشتر مسائل باز کنن
خوب بود خب آدما با نظراتشون آشنا می‌کرد با کارهایی که می‌خواستن بکنن آدم بهتر میتونست با افکارشون با ایده‌هاشون آشنا بشه
فقط برنامه کلی ارائه میدن دقیقاً نمیگن که چی کار می‌خوام بکنن دقیقاً مشخص نمی‌کنن نمیدونم محتاطانه حرف میزنن یا اینکه واقعا برنامه‌ای ندارن
مناظره اولش زیاد ما رو روشن شفاف نبودن ولی مناظره‌های بعدیش بهتر بودن خدا رو شکر
اون چیزی که مفهوم مناظره پیدا کرد توی مناظره آخر که با موضوع سیاسی بود بیشتر مفهوم مناظره داشت
اون دو تا مناظره بعدی خیلی بهتر شد خصوصا اینکه تایما مثلا کاملا مرتب شده بود برنامه‌ریزی شده بود
تا می‌خواستن اهداف کلیشون رو بیان کنن از مقدمه بیان اصل مجری میگفت که وقت ما تمام شده و اینا میموند برای کاندیدای بعدی در واقع
بعد اون کاندید بنده خدا ادامه حرفشو داره میده آقای حیدری هی میگه متشکرم این هم دور از ادب دور از اخلاقه و واقعا بیننده نمیتونه درست تصمیم بگیره
به نظر من یه خورده وقتشون که بیشتر باشه به جای اینکه این برنامه‌هایی که میذارن و اینا این برنامه‌ای که مفیدم نیستش لااقل بزنین مردم که میخوان انتخاب کنن دیدشون فکرشون بازتر بشه که بتونن انتخاب درست بکنن ان شاءالله به امید خدا
تا حدودی کاندیداها همدیگه رو به چالش کشوندن ولی باز هم مردم احتیاج دارن که شناخت بیشتری پیدا بکنن
خیلی مهمه این مناظره هم فضای اخلاقی رو موفق شد پیاده سازی بکنه تا حدود زیادی و هم یه روال جدیدی شد تو بحث مناظره ها
دشمنان ما هم بهتر از ما
In the third and final debate, candidates outlined their plans on domestic and foreign policies. All 8 candidates maintained that they will defend the rights of the Iranian people in the international arena.
بنده سریع عرض میکنم
Talking unambiguously, Americans are opposed to the basis of our revolution. They oppose us because we were looking for independence. And we have reached it and now we are insisting upon it. By independence, I mean political and cultural independence.
وظیفه دستگاه دیپلماسی کاهش هزینه است.
Diplomacy means minimizing the costs rather than reading or writing a declaration. I assure you that resolving the nuclear issue is harder than executing the 598 Treaty of the Security Council.
من اینجا معتقدم که Our diplomacy has failed in recent years in realizing the objectives set by our foreign policy.
About freedom of the media, please consider the equality and justice between different media in those years. Freedom of the media means giving freedom to the others too. How much of the media were working in favor of a single camp?
ببینید ما اختلاف نظر داریم.
There are disagreements among us, but the disagreements are never in the principles. There are always some disagreements among people, Mr. Ghazi. Disagreements can result in progress and movement sometimes.
نشناختن دنیا
Not knowing the world, our tasks, and employing unknown people in our campaign offices will create many problems later.
مدیریت جامعه ما باید دارای ثبات باشه.
Social management should be stable. The managers should be appointed based on regulations rather than personal favors. A management framework will help much in our national and international policies.
The administration should be comprehensive, efficient, as well as believing in the leadership of Islamic Republic of Iran. Nothing else will influence my decisions. I will employ all the camps and parties.
However, some candidates did not agree with their rivals on the approaches to do so.
In Mr. Jalili's latest talks in Almaty, they suggested some items that we could have progressed. But Mr. Jalili refused their offer. The 5+1 group suggested that if you stop the 20% enrichment and slow down the foreticide, we will stop 3 embargoes. Obviously, the achievements are gradual. Yet he replied that we will do another thing, and you shall lift all these sanctions.
I said that we are ready for reciprocal steps. Whatever you do, we will answer proportionally. If you progress X kilometers, we will go X kilometers. If you go X+1, we go X+1. The British representative asked if we are ready right now for 25 kilometers, and I replied, yes. Then I took out my notebook to start. Then the US representative hushed the British representative, and the audience laughed out loud. They asked for a few days interval to ask their superiors, but their few days took 40 days. I'm really sorry to hear such words from Mr. Velayati.
Mr. Jalili, diplomacy isn't a philosophy class that you are evaluating your logic or proud of them facing a logical dead end. What the people see is that you have not made a single step forward in the talks. The sanctions are increasing the pressure on the people. A good diplomacy saves the nuclear rights while minimizing the sanctions.
In addition, principalist and reformist candidates had disagreements on several issues.
I think when we talk of freedom, students, and the ethnicities, we, all of us, including myself, realize our words. We should remember these values regardless of our position.
I clearly remember the facts. I'm saying that I will behave equally with all the ethnicities based on the law. I'm saying that I will reinforce the freedom of speech. And you mean that I haven't been like this before?
Freedom of the media means giving freedom to the others too. How much of the media were working in favor of a single camp? What was the percentage? How much of the ethnicities, the villages, and the towns enjoyed the freedom of speech? Majority of the media were in favor of a single camp. Later, they were called chain press.
To answer Mr. Jalili, growth of the press, the parties, and the NGOs in the 8 years of reformist administration were much higher than any other period. We allotted the subsidies to the parties. How was it used? How was the subsidy for the media used? Were they really spent for the reformists only? The House of Parties distributed the budgets, but it's not like this right now.
Taking a close look at the people's comments on the election reports on the news websites and social networks shows how much election debates can heat up the electoral mood and change people's minds. In this round of the presidential election, unlike the previous one, candidates have tried not to use posters, placards, and flyers in their campaigns. They planned to make their utmost use of the airtime provided by the national and radio television to talk to people.
There is still time till the end of the campaigning. print campaign material will surely be used. Yet, speeches, documentaries, and other methods of presenting plans in the TV have made much contribution to the candidates. Of course, we shouldn't forget the internet. All the candidates are taking much advantage of their online websites as well as news agencies, resulting in reduction of printed material and hardware campaigning.
All candidates are each allowed to use more than 7 hours of television airtime to introduce themselves and express their views by different programs, including 2 documentaries for each candidate. The first documentary about Ali Akbar Velayati was a narrative of his political activities before and after the Islamic Revolution. In Ghalibaf's documentary, scenes of construction projects in Tehran are also displayed in order to highlight his resume in Tehran's metropolis. In the documentary made for him, Qarazi talks about his plans to form an anti-inflation administration. Some part of the film presents his political careers. Jalili, in the documentary called People Plus One, discussed Iran's negotiations with the P5+1. Jalili explains that his plans are based on the theory of resistance and development. Most of Rezai's documentary shows his talks with people in the country's rural areas. People talk about their economic problems with him. Like his rivals' documentary films, Rouhani's campaigning documentary is a story of his career. Also discussed are the issues around his negotiations with 3 European countries on Iran's nuclear programs. As the presidential candidates have been talking to people through radio and television channels and visiting them in different cities, universities and mosques across the country, candidates running for city and rural councils have to apply for traditional forms of campaigning, including using pasting posters on the city walls, distribute flyers and brochures. The 4th city and rural council elections are also scheduled to be held on June the 14th.
Regarding the town and city councils, I wish there was a mechanism to prevent unreasonable expenditure. There are so much campaign irregularities right now. No banner or large poster is allowed. There are clear regulations in this regard. Yet we see numerous irregularities like pasting posters to power poles or house gates.
As the candidates are using the last hours of their legal campaign period to get the people's votes, the Interior Ministry has been getting ready to install nearly 12,000 ballot boxes in 66,000 polling stations across the country.
For each polling place, 5 to 7 executive members and some substitutes are provisioned in the law, along with members of the monitoring board. Monitoring board for the presidential election is formed of the Guardian Council representatives, and for the council's election, it is formed of some representatives from the parliament. The monitoring authorities will be 4 or 5 persons. There will also be some service persons and police officers, which will be about 20 people for each polling station. Therefore, more than 1 million people will be involved in holding and monitoring the elections in the country.
Out of the 6 remaining contenders, 3 candidates are principlist, 1 is reformist, and 2 independent. Many observers argue that the election will go to a runoff. According to the law, if a candidate could not achieve more than 50% of the turnout, the top 2 candidates with the most votes will compete in a runoff.
According to the law, in case of going to the runoff, the first Friday after the confirmation by the Guardian Council will be the runoff election day. So again, from the day of confirmation to 24 hours before the election day will be the legal period for campaigning.
The 6 candidates in the race offer a variety of political trends within the context of the Islamic Revolution, so that nearly all the people can select their candidates based on their political orientations. Like all the previous elections in Iran, the turnout of voters in this round of the presidential election will show how many Iranians are still interested in the Islamic Republic.